cost of protracted displacement exacerbated by regional instability. The atrocities you described, committed with impunity, not only drive displacement, but also undermine the norms that protect civilians. Therefore, we echo your call for moral clarity and reaffirmation of international humanitarian law. No conflict should thump our conscience or render us powerless. Jordan fully aligns with your defense of regional instruments. These are not relics, but vital tools of sovereignty and shared responsibility. In our context, we have taken the right choices and we implemented innovative measures. Such as access for refugees into our labor market and educational system. These efforts, supported by UNHCR and partners, demonstrate really how cooperation is essential for response. However, High Commissioner, the funding crisis you outlined threatens to unveil these gains. Jordan's economy, already burdened by hosting refugees for over decades, faces immense pressure from reduced international funding, such as our public services in health, education, water, and infrastructure have been stretched to their limits. And the 25% drop in UNHCR funding this year have forced painful cuts, reduced cash assistance, limited health access, and curtailed livelihood programs. These are not abstract numbers. They affect real lives, dreams of boys, kids, girls, and young girls. Families are struggling to survive, and in camps like Zaatari and Azraq, or urban refugee facing poverty, looking forward for their detainees. Mr. Chair, we also express solidarity with UNHCR staff affected by the current financial crisis. And again, this is not only a budget issue, it's a moment to rethink the system. Jordan supports the broader reform aligned with the humanitarian reset by Tom Fletcher and the UN80 initiative of the Secretary General. UNHCR is a key role to play in this transformation. Jordan is working with a group of like-minded countries on supporting the initiative. Burden sharing must be more than rhetoric. It requires equitable support for host countries, including Jordan, and bear the brunt while we wealthier nations host the fewer. On solutions, we share the optimism of High Commissioner regarding the detainees of Syrian crisis. The milestone of 1 million detainees is encouraging, almost 1/7 of them retained from Jordan. But sustainability is key. Jordan has facilitated voluntary return and stands ready to support more, provided conditions in Syria improve with international backing. We call for bolder investment in reconstruction, as you urged, to prevent renewed displacement. Similarly, in protected solutions, we always advocate for tackling the root causes for solutions. Mr. Chair, as we look ahead for the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review in December this year, Jordan stressed on the importance of this moment to take stock on progress of pledges, access challenges, and identify what more is needed to advance the objectives of the Global Compact to Refugees. Finally, as we witness this is the last XCOM for High Commissioner Grandi, Jordan expressed deep appreciation for his leadership, for his principled leadership, tireless advocacy, and unwavering commitment to refugees and host countries. His decade of service leaves a strong legacy at a time of unprecedented global humanitarian need. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Luxembourg. Ambassador, you have the floor. High Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, Luxembourg aligns itself with the statement made by a group of European countries and would like to add a few comments in its national capacity. Commissioner, Luxembourg would like to start by expressing its deep-seated gratitude to you for your leadership, your commitment, and your compassion throughout the last decade. My country is profoundly concerned by the unprecedented liquidity crisis impacting UNHCR, as well as the entire UN and humanitarian system. We greet the professionalism and determination of the entire UNHCR team, despite the difficult choices imposed by internal reorganization and the loss of dedicated colleagues. The moral obligation incumbent on us to provide protection to refugees enshrined in the 1951 Convention is no less relevant today than it was when it was passed, and it requires shared responsibility. We deplore the impact on budgetary cuts for refugees and IDPs, particularly the most vulnerable, and we reiterate our support for an approach based on age, gender, and diversity in order to take account of the protection needs of all concerned. Chair, in a context of multifarious crises, Luxembourg reiterates its commitment to multilateralism. We continue to shoulder our commitment by dedicating 1% of our GDP to public aid for development. 15% of this are targeted to humanitarian action. My country is a stalwart partner for UNHCR. We offer an essential stability of funding, forecastability for effective planning, and have increased progressively our contribution over recent years. Our support between 2022 and 2025 will reach more than 33 million euros, and we are planning an increase in our annual contribution for 2026 from 8.7 to 11 million. This is a 26.5% increase. In answer to the High Commissioner's call, Luxembourg is preparing freeing additional funds by the end of the year in order to allow UNHCR to find strategic solutions to the current budget crisis. My country fully supports the vision shared by the Humanitarian Compact presented by Tom Fletcher as part of UN80. We greet the commitment, the active commitment of UNHCR in its efforts to reform at the systemic scale, and we encourage it to continue this. We reiterate the importance of multi-agency and multi-partner coordination, in particular through sharing services and strengthening national and local leaderships and synergies. A significant, profound, and lasting paradigm shift in the humanitarian system is essential. This must be based on greater responsibility, involvement, and mobilization as well as capitalizing on the potential of affected populations and tireless efforts to prioritize and innovate at all levels. High Commissioner, the scale and complexity of forced displacement is unprecedented. We are confronting an increasing number of chronic displacement contexts, often under-financed. And this is why my country is promoting a multi-annual flexible payment to deal with these contexts, which remain at the heart of our humanitarian priorities. The sustainability of responses to forced displacement, in particular through investment and the empowerment of refugees, as well as the implementation of inclusion policies, is as important as ever. Luxembourg supports, since its inception, the Refugee-led Innovation Fund, which capitalizes on the potential of local communities and empowers them. Ladies and gentlemen, my country remains convinced that innovation will play a growing and key role in refugee protection. It constitutes a key lever to strengthen our effectiveness, increase accountability, and in short, we are bringing about a real difference in the life of those who are displaced. In this connection, we are working closely with UNHCR to establish a framework which can foster research and development to identify new and innovative approaches. With a view to the Global Refugee Forum Progress Review, Luxembourg reiterates its commitment as a co-founder of the multi-stakeholder initiative entitled Connectivity for Refugees. This aims to connect 20 million of those displaced by force and the communities hosting them by 2030 by ensuring availability, affordable and inclusive connectivity. Furthermore, Luxembourg is proud of its partnership with UNHCR in its development of its early warning and effective response system. This has been done in collaboration with the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. This project, which draws on digital technologies, is essential in anticipating and more promptly reacting to forced displacement to prevent crises which will become ever more complex. Ladies and gentlemen, Luxembourg will continue to demonstrate its solidarity to those falling under UNHCR's mandate, as well as host communities, and at the national level as a host country of long standing. Thank you for your attention. The Chair, thank you very much. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Slovakia, Ambassador.
Thank you, Chair. Slovakia aligns itself with the statement of European member states delivered by Denmark. We are taking the floor to make some remarks that are of particular importance to our national delegation. To set out, we thank High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for his opening statement and his interactive comments. We appreciate his updates on important refugee matters and refugee situations in the field to which UNHCR has been responding. We have also taken note of the new situation the UN Refugee Agency is forced to cope with. We understand that this can result in a UNHCR doing less with less. Still, we have our full confidence in you that you will be able to safeguard the implementation of your core mandate. In this context, we welcome the ExCom statement in support of UNHCR. We think it is an appropriate response to this challenging period. We also recognize UNHCR's engagement in the collective endeavor under the UN80 and Humanitarian Reset broader initiatives. Chair, we have always subscribed to High Commissioner's call for increased international solidarity with refugees and host communities. The number of pledges recorded at the second Global Refugee Forum in 2023 and their implementation testify the commitment in this regard. We are looking forward to the midterm meeting scheduled to take place in Geneva this December in order to review progress. We have always emphasized the need for approaches that would address refugee situations in a comprehensive manner. All in all, this means putting the same emphasis on various aspects covered by the key objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees, from refugee protection and inclusion during their time in need to their safe and dignified return after the conflict or crisis situation has settled. A number of Slovakia's pledges presented at the GRF 2023 have been aimed at this objective, as we have the responsibility of hosting a substantial number of persons forced to flee Russia's war on Ukraine. Our commitment in this regard will not weaken, nor will our humanitarian and economic assistance to our hard-tested neighbor, together with whom we are envisaging holding a third round of our two governments' joint consultations. In this connection, we would like to thank UNHCR once again for its continued support aimed at complementing efforts led by our government, in particular by addressing gaps in the provision of assistance and services to people seeking refuge on our territory. In 2024, we marked the 30th anniversary of UNHCR's presence in Slovakia. Our intensive cooperation has been documented, for example, by the signing last year between the Slovak Olympic Committee and the UNHCR of a memorandum in support of Ukrainian refugees through sport, or the delivery of material support by UNHCR in Slovakia in the frame of the agreement between our Ministry of Interior and UNHCR. We thank UNHCR for the preparation of the 2025-26 edition of its Regional Refugee Response Plan. Its launch in Slovakia took place in February this year. Chair, to close, let me offer our repeated thanks to UNHCR and its work throughout the ongoing year. The recent period has continuously been marked by unprecedented number of people forced to set out on a journey as refugees. All this combined with a difficult situation in the agency's financial envelope. And Slovakia hears your call, and we are trying to contribute within our budgetary limits, also with voluntary contribution also this year. High Commissioner's dedicated effort to ease the plight of refugees should also this year deserve our collective recognition and support through adoption of the UNGA Omnibus Resolution. And I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is distinguished representative of Belarus. Madam Ambassador, you have the floor. Thank you, President. The delegation of Belarus expresses its gratitude to the High Commissioner, Mr. Grandi. We very much appreciate his leadership over the years, his personal contribution to HCR's activities and efforts to strengthen international cooperation in that sphere. Modern crisis phenomena, as shown in the catastrophic growth in forced displacees, is a consequence of armed conflict, growing global inequality, and as Mr. Grandi said, rejection of such approaches as cooperation and compromise. Rejecting established multilateral and bilateral relations on issues of mixed international displacement of refugees and migrants have turned this displacement into chaos and can lead to horrendous consequences, especially for the most vulnerable. Belarus observes these consequences on its own western border with the EU and has done for the last 5 years. Sadly, our western neighbors have rejected cooperation, and they've scaled down unilaterally and virtually blocked many years of cooperation with Belarus and coordinated response to flows of migrants and refugees. Instead, they've built fences. They practice harsh, forced expulsion of forcibly displaced persons and potential asylum seekers, and without any grounds accuse Belarus of supposedly weaponization and instrumentalization of migrants and refugees. Their actions are accompanied by violations of human rights and deaths of people who've been forced to leave their homes in search for safety and a better life. In 4 years, Belarusian law enforcement have documented over 80 cases of death of forcibly displaced persons as a result of violent actions by the security structures of our Western neighbors. Belarus urges HCR to devote more attention to this issue, analyze evidence of violations, and facilitate their prevention thereof. So, Belarus welcomes the contribution of HCR to strengthening the national asylum system. In our country, there's an effective mechanism for receiving forced displacees in line with international standards. We consistently develop cooperation to seek sustainable solutions. Recently in Vitebsk, that's in the north of Belarus, we've completed modernization of a temporary refugee settlement camp, which has been in Belarus for over 20 years. And the OHCHR mission in Belarus will have seen, this will help swiftly respond to problems related to forced migration. In September this year, we signed a protocol on cooperation between the OHCHR mission in Minsk with the Belarus border authorities. The emphasis in this document is on bolstering national capacities, effective implementation of the UN's humanitarian mission, cooperation on issues of provision of assistance to those needing international protection. We continue together to help refugees from Ukraine. Those people receive in Belarus additional protection and also benefits when it comes to finding work, education, and medicine and pensions. The Belarusian Red Cross local authorities, together with OHCHR, help refugees in integration and provide help to families with children and to elderly people. High Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, Belarus understands the measures forced on HCR as a result of the humanitarian funding crisis. We trust that the planned change of status of the HCR mission in Minsk will not undermine bilateral cooperation between HCR and Belarus, cooperation that's geared towards bolstering capacities in the sphere of international protection and asylum, providing assistance to refugees and forcibly displaced persons. Sir, making its contribution to the quest for sustainable solutions for refugees and migrants, Belarus continues to develop dialogue with all interested stakeholders. On 28th of October in Minsk, as part of the 3rd Minsk International Conference on Eurasian Security, there will be an event devoted to the issue of mixed displacement in modern international relations. The focus of the discussion will be on issues of orderly, safe displacement of people and their integration into receiving societies as a growing important factor in economic growth and prosperity. We're grateful to HCR for confirming their participation in this event, and we believe that the outcomes of the discussion will contribute to a better understanding of the impact of growing global displacement on security and development in the Eurasian region. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now to the High Commissioner to share his thoughts and responses to what's been raised during the debate.
Gracias, señor Presidente. I will start with Lebanon, and just to confirm one line of the statement in which Lebanon said that I am personally a steadfast friend of Lebanon. Yes, I am a steadfast friend of Lebanon, and I'm very happy that years and years of very complex work on a difficult displacement situation, that of Syrians in Lebanon, may have now, as I've said already several times, a better direction going forward, as was also mentioned in the statement itself. We strongly support the work being led by the government of Lebanon with Syrian refugees in the country to organize their return, their voluntary return, and we will continue to support it, and this is why we need maximum resources for that operation. But I'm happy that many donors also have mentioned that. It's quite important. I think we also need to recognize that for Lebanon, the presence of so many refugees, one of the highest percentages pro capita ratios of refugees per national population has been a formidable challenge. So thank you very much for staying the course, and we will continue to that course together in the new direction. Fully agree also with Lebanon's statement that now we need to continue to support those that stay in Lebanon and until they can go back, but we need to really focus on Syria and on strengthening support there. The fact that there are new arrivals from Syria in Lebanon, although not huge numbers, means that still there are gaps in what is done to support Syria. This actually leads me also to the parallel statement of Jordan. which also emphasized the importance of sustainability of returns of Syrians to Syria. I would stress, looking also at the events of the last few months, including in southern Syria, which is the most relevant region for Jordan, that security support to Syria is very important. Of all the many things that need to be done to ensure that Syria goes on a stabilization path, security support is extremely important also for the returnees. And to complete my comments to Jordan, I want to salute the very close cooperation we've had with Jordan. I personally must say 20 years of cooperation, first in my years with UNRWA and now my 10 years as High Commissioner for Refugees. Jordan has been a very, very close partner. I have not forgotten that His Majesty King Abdullah opened the Global Refugee Forum and did us that honor with great eloquence and great vision. And Jordan spearheaded in the region new approaches, which led eventually to the creation of the global concessional financing facility, one of the World Bank's instruments to support refugee hosting countries, middle-income refugee hosting countries. So very, very important. Thank you, both Jordan and Lebanon. Some statements from Africa. I appreciate Sierra Leone's statement, also its regional focus. I've said this about each of the coastal states in West Africa. I think it's very important. And our regional bureau has spearheaded a regional approach with the dialogue that was mentioned. Sierra Leone mentioned also cooperation through ECOWAS. It's very important to continue because the themes related to displacement in the region, the security dimension are very regional in nature. So it's important to do that, but Sierra Leone mentioned also its regional approach in respect of mixed movements, which also is a feature of West Africa. Thank you for doing that and for emphasizing your domestic efforts to strengthen asylum and inclusion. Malawi, we've been, of course, in dialogue with Malawi, praising Malawi for having allocated land to decongest Dzaleka refugee camp. This is very important, and this is not an entirely new theme, but something that needs more donor support. We have been penalized in some of those operations with less funding, so it's very important when there are really projects, programs to try to stabilize the situation to support them. Thank you for doing, happy that you were able to conduct some voluntary repatriation to Burundi and Rwanda and hope that that will continue. And thanks for mentioning resettlement and appealing for more resettlement. Resettlement, we are at very low numbers of resettlement. I think everybody is aware of that. I think that for that reason, it is important that we are very strategic in how we use the limited resettlement capacity for cases that are particularly sensitive or desperate or vulnerable. So I really encourage everybody to reflect on what Malawi said and bring it forward. Y agradezco también a los...
Also want to welcome the efforts of Equatorial Guinea in its role as a leader on issues of displacement since 2019, I think. And the emphasis in their statement of Equatorial Guinea on issues of internal displacement, as well as in promoting the Kampala Convention. That's an important point. Thank you again to Equatorial Guinea for their role in developing humanitarian initiatives in an African context in support of the African Union's action, and UNHCR also supports that initiative.
European statement. Je commence par la France.
I'll start with France. So that I want to thank them for the very close cooperation that we have enjoyed with France as an institution. And for me personally, thank you very much to you, and thank you also for France's support in many different domains. We certainly do applaud, I repeat, as I did with other countries, we do applaud those efforts to promote peace in the Middle East, in Central Africa, and in other conflict theaters. That's the most important thing if we truly want to reduce the number of IDPs and refugees. And we do very much rely on France's support going forward, especially on a number of dossiers such as return of Syrian refugees. We can assure France of our full commitment when it comes to institutional reform, improving the effectiveness of the institution, but we are still troubled by the drop in contributions. We realize that it does reflect a vast and complex budgetary depression, but we do urge France to keep moving forward, to keep supporting us.
I can say the same, that your support over the past 10 years has been one of the most coherent, consistent and constant of any country, both as a very important donor country, as a very important host country. You have a very unique role. You have played a very unique role in this respect, but also in terms of policy, refugee policy and protection policy in Europe and beyond. So big thanks to Germany for all these years of close cooperation. Like for France, I want to stress, however, that we are concerned about the pressure under which your humanitarian budget is being placed, and we hope that all possible considerations will be made so that contributions are safeguarded as much as possible at this very, very difficult juncture. We, on the other hand, as you said in your statement, will continue to look at innovative approaches, for example, sustainable responses, which we've been speaking about and of which Germany has been one of the strongest supporters. Thank you for that as well. Staying in Europe, Greece, strong cooperation. I remember that in 2016, when I started my assignment, one of my first visits was to Lesbos. At that time, the place of arrival of thousands and thousands of Syrian and other refugees. So that really marked the whole era of cooperation, and certainly marked a very strong, close cooperation between Greece and UNHCR. Greece, which remains a very exposed country in the European Union and in Europe in terms of arrivals. We're conscious that there's been a spike of arrivals from Libya. 80% about, I think, are Sudanese, therefore people that flee a conflict. We understand the sensitivities and the complexity of the response. We continue to encourage Greece to respond in a manner that is as much as possible upholding international standards. The recent visit by the Assistant High Commissioner for Protection and the Director was very promising, very positive. So thank you for that. And thank you also for having mentioned the importance of working upstream, route-based approach, cooperation with IOM, and very much agree with your message. IOM and UNHCR are two organizations working closely together, but with distinct portfolios and mandates. Moving north, the Swedish statement, including, I'm happy that some of the things that we're saying are becoming little slogans, like doing less with less and being small but strong. May I say that maybe now let's move from less with less to something a bit more positive. More with more is a bit too ambitious, but very well with less is maybe a good slogan that we we will continue to use going forward. Otherwise, we bake in a narrative of little resources that is not good. I want, however, to stress that Sweden, as was mentioned, is a champion, is the world champion of flexible funding. And that is phenomenal. And that is very important. The big challenge for us is less funding, but it is also more inflexible funding. Until now, we were able, through different funding sources, to move resources where they were most needed. You want us to be efficient. The main tool of efficiency is flexible funding. That's what allows us to move where it's needed. Without flexible funding, we will not be able to tackle some of the challenges that you have all decried and all referred to. So please, follow Sweden's example. It's really important. Also in terms of resettlement. What I said earlier, strategic use of resettlement, you said it. Women, girls were needed, LGBT in many places where they are refugees, but they're still discriminated. Very, very important that you focus on that. And thank you. Big thanks for having put additional resources into GBV, gender-based violence responses, because I'm very worried that we are backtracking on that such important activities. And I applaud Finland also for really remaining a strong supporter. I hear the appeal that Finland made to remain engaged in the interagency processes, but let me reassure everybody, we are very engaged. Ask any of my deputies here how much we're engaged in UN80, in humanitarian reset. We clearly see that a lot can only be resolved together and not agency by agency. We've been very much focusing on our plight this year, but with an eye, not more than an eye, with a full participation in the interagency initiative. I say this because it was a strong message from Finland. And thank you, Finland. Also, you have been such a champion in very important areas, education, disabilities, and we really need to applaud that. And since I'm speaking after these two countries, I wish their candidates that were announced all the best. I'm doing it with every candidate in the full spirit of impartiality. And a few more European statement. United Kingdom, not to repeat everything, the things I said about others, but can I just very much support the appeal of the United Kingdom to approve the budget for next year? It is vital that this budget is approved. After what I have said, after what you have all said about the pressure, the financial pressures, we cannot afford not to have a budget or to have a budget that has not full support. Please, please, this is a very fundamental action that this executive committee has to carry out before the end of this session. Thank you also to the United Kingdom for assessing candidly the challenges that we have, but upholding its support to the multilateral system. This is extremely important on the part of a country that has so much history in having forged that multilateral system. I just want to say there was a sentence in the statement, if I'm not mistaken, saying the humanitarian retreat. There is an inevitable retreat. Let's be a bit careful about that. It goes to the less with less, because how can humanitarian work retreat when you have so many crises? So either you solve conflict or you have to support humanitarian action. There's a contradiction otherwise between these two. Merci au Luxembourg, qui est pas...
Thank you, Luxembourg. One of the countries that have actually stepped up their contribution. I'm sorry I didn't say it during my statement yesterday, and that was an oversight that cannot be forgiven. So I do ask apologies. I apologize to Luxembourg. I very much want to appreciate the fact that Luxembourg is one of the few countries which thus far has responded to my appeal yesterday for more resources between now and the end of the year to bridge the 300 million dollar deficit. So thank you to Luxembourg, a small country that's setting the example. Can other countries follow in their footsteps? And thank you, Luxembourg, for being a champion of innovation, particularly in the field of technology, financial approaches, and so on. It's very valuable.
Will look within its budgetary boundaries, of course, naturally, at additional resources. I want to thank Slovakia for that. 30 years of cooperation in Slovakia. I remember when we established offices after the fall of the Berlin Wall in that part of Europe. That's quite a milestone. Thank you for hosting Ukrainians. You have been one of the countries really championing that approach, and we will continue to support. And I think my last is Belarus. We remain, of course, completely available to reinforce, to help you reinforce your asylum capacity. The signature of the protocol with the border service, if I understand correctly, just a few weeks ago, is really proof of this engagement to help you strengthen the capacity to deal with movement of population, refugees in particular, in the territory of Belarus. We will have now a multi-country office approach in the region, as we have in other regions for financial reasons, but this does not diminish our commitment. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the High Commissioner, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. We will we'll reconvene this afternoon at 1500 hours to continue the general debate. Before concluding, I want to give the floor to the Secretariat to make an announcement.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. I wish to inform you that the side event, Delivering Better Together, Advancing Humanitarian Reform, Efficiency and Localization, will be held from 1:30 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. in Room 5. Sandwiches will be provided outside of the room for your convenience. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. With that, the third meeting of the Executive Committee of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee is adjourned.